okay, parents, your kids are going to turn out just fine.
This episode of the podcast is brought to you by FOCO. That's FOCO, F-O-C-O. If you are a parent of a child or teen with ADHD, you know how challenging it can be to keep them focused and engaged. FOCO is the all-natural solution for ADHD. Whether it's for school, homework, or just everyday activities, FOCO helps your child or teen stay calm and attentive. Before trying prescription drugs like Adderall that can come with harsh side effects, I recommend you try FOCO. Visit ThinkFOCO, that's ThinkFoco, thinkfoco.com for more information. Welcome to the Your Kids Will Be Fine podcast. I am Dr. Michael Malobsky, board-certified pediatrician here in beautiful Castle Rock, Colorado, also parent of 7 and grandparent of 3. On Your Kids Will Be Fine, we focus on the overload of information parents are getting exposed to on an everyday basis and how much anxiety that creates in even sometimes the most basic parenting choices, and what we can do to cut through the fog and help us all feel a little bit better about how we make choices about our parenting and our kids' health, and hopefully that you come away knowing that your kids will be fine. Please don't forget to find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, everywhere you get your podcast, as well as our YouTube channel at Your Kids Will Be Fine podcast. Don't forget to go to our website, yourkidswillbefine.com, where all the episodes are available for download. And you can leave comments and suggestions about further shows. Today, I want to talk about parenting styles. I get lots of questions about this from conscientious, concerned, sensitive, involved parents who want to feel that they're being intentional about the choices they make around parenting. And there is an enormous amount of information on social media. When I went to search this topic on all different platforms, it's pretty spectacular. Not to mention, it certainly gives people the impression that there is only one way to go about it, depending on what agenda you're pushing when it comes to your parenting style. So let's talk about what those are. Let's talk about what the prevailing interests are in the parenting style space in terms of what more and more people are gravitating towards. And let's talk about real life application, about what it means day to day when you're raising little kids and how that has to look. And I think what you're going to find is that, and I keep coming back to this, there's no such thing as being a perfect parent. All of us are out here trying our best every day. All of us are getting it wrong all the time. And the key is that you have some forgiveness and grace for yourself, and know that as long as you keep showing up with a loving way and wanting to be the best version of yourself for your kids are going to be fine. And so let's talk about parenting styles. In traditional psychology, there are 3 main parenting styles. If you grew up with baby boomer generation parents, you're familiar with authoritarian parenting. Authoritarian parenting is considered, I think, by most in the psychology world as to be not the most ideal way anymore to raise kids. It worked for our parents. I don't think they had another model. Most of them were raised, at least in my family, both my parents were raised by immigrants. And so they didn't really have a lot of tools. They only had what they were taught. And authoritarian parenting seemed to be the way to go. What does that mean? It's the my way or the highway. It's that these are the rules. There will be consequences applied, and they will be harsh for not adhering to the program. And I'm not interested in how you feel about it. There is right. And you will do it the way that I tell you to do it, because I'm not interested in hearing anything else about it, because I'm busy, because life is hard. And that's what most of us were exposed to in the 70s and 80s with our parents, who are now my kids' grandparents. And by the way, not how they act with their grandchildren. Completely different. Now, I think that resonates with a lot of people, especially in more conservative and religious communities, certainly in our community, being a part of the Orthodox Jewish community, that certainly a lot of people subscribe to versions of that. But I think most people have moved away from that as the complete overriding day-to-day philosophy. Next, in the middle, is what we call authoritative, as opposed to authoritarian. Authoritative parenting is really considered to be the more middle ground, and versions of it are considered to be more the enlightened and ideal way of approaching parenting, which is, hey, we have boundaries, we have expectations, but how we apply those can be different depending on the emotional needs of the child, that the child's emotional needs should be honored, and we should be sensitive to how our kids are feeling and reacting and functioning, and we can tailor our approach to our kids' emotional needs, and that our way of handling boundaries and discipline and all those things are tuned more to our kids' emotional well-being. And it doesn't mean that we don't have boundaries or expectations. It's just how we apply them. And I think that most of the types of parenting styles that we hear about more and more on the current landscape, those are things like the elephant parent, as it were, the whole gardening versus carpentry approach. In the Talmudic version, it's planting and building. Follow that basic idea that we have a structure, but it's how we gently apply that structure that has to do, that is sensitive to our child's individual emotional world. And then further down the road, we have what's normally called permissive parenting. I think that depending on who you are, if this works for you, it's fine. Permissive parenting tends to really de-emphasize boundaries, expectations, is really child-led, and that the parents just kind of follow behind and let the child sort of lead on all things in their day-to-day life and existence. Things that they want to do, they don't want to do, that's all child-led. I think some parenting experts and credible psychology experts feel that this can have downsides, but it have a hard time coming down in a really hard way that this should never be applied, because you can never say never. There are certain families for whom I'm sure this works because of their unique situation and the way they've structured their lives, and that this is for them the ideal way that they want to function, and they feel that their children benefit from it. So I can't fault anybody for doing it. It's just in my own personal life. We've raised 7 kids. I don't see how this can work for us, but it doesn't mean that for certain families that it can't work. But I think that there are drawbacks. So the newer sort of vocabulary on the landscape are things, elephant parenting. And the elephant parent was a response to the Tiger Mom movement. If anyone read the book by that famous lawyer at Yale who raised daughters, and they're both successful Ivy League educated professionals, and she was touting that her rigid approach to child rearing that was very performance based and very high demand, and pushing their children very hard, even if they were miserable, and that doesn't matter because I'm trying to achieve something bigger. Obviously, her kids came out okay, and that obviously worked for her. But I think for a lot of professionals in this space, feel that can also sometimes be harmful for your child because you have no sensitivity or recognition to how they might be feeling about any of it. Then that more authoritarian. And then in response to that came the elephant parent. When people observe elephants in the wild, baby elephants have a certain amount of freedom to explore and move away and work on their own, but they have any discomfort or fear, they run back rapidly into the loving fold of the mother and the herd, and to feel safe and protected. So, and it's really supposed to be a more emotionally informed way of approaching your kids, much more in the mold of authoritative parenting might be. That, but an emphasis more on, hey, your child should have the ability to feel more independent and to explore, but to know that their feeling of safety and that their emotional support is emphasized. There's a lot of literature out on why kids are more anxious and why kids are having a harder time with mental health in the current generation. And of course, a lot of that centers around technology and the smartphone. And we had a podcast addressing that earlier. But what it seems to be is that there are things in our kids' lives separate from technology that are no longer a part of their day-to-day experience, maybe because of technology, but maybe also because of parenting attitudes and heightened amounts of fear and concern about their safety that may be misplaced. And one of those is child-led, unsupervised play with other children without parental interference. Of all the things that we can look at, that seems to be one of the more vital and central things that is missing more and more from the childhood experience that our kids are experiencing now, that has to do with a lot of healthy emotional development later on. And we've found in other cultures that have the same amount of technology engagement and the same amount of use, that where there is more of that because of just cultural differences, there is a big difference in mental health outcomes. And that, once again, seems to be also in the mold of the elephant parent, where giving your child space and freedom to explore and be independent, but also know that how to, if they feel unsafe, how to resolve that and how to feel better and how to find you. So I think that when we're in the trenches and we're raising little kids, it's not always possible, and you don't always have available to you the luxury of sitting back and going, what parenting style am I going to engage this problem with today? How do I see this from the elephant parent? Because sometimes, especially I remember when we had 3 kids under the age of 4, some days just don't go like that. And some days are just about survival with keeping everybody's sanity and physical safety intact. And we'll start over tomorrow. So what I don't want parents to do is be overly anxious about every single choice that they make, because some choices we make because we just have to make them in the moment to get through the moment and the day. And then we have the ability to maybe, once we're through that time, think about it and go, okay, well, next time maybe I can think about this a little differently, but not beat yourself up at every opportunity when you don't feel you made the right choice, or you feel like you made a mistake and blew it, or you lost it with your kids, because we all do. And as long as we're all out here every day trying our best, showing up for our kids and showing up with our most loving, best selves and putting in the time, your kids are going to be all right. And it's great to understand these things. It's great to understand what was maybe done to us that wasn't ideal, so we have the opportunity to change it and do different. But I think that having some ability to provide some forgiveness and grace for how we do things moment to moment and day to day is going to help us. So, like many things in life, it seems to be the middle road always is the best when we talk about parenting styles. It's always great to recognize and validate and maybe change your approach based on what your kid kind of seems to need. The way a good analogy, we have 7 children. That each kid is like a Rubik's Cube that you got to solve differently to get the right solution. No 2 kids need the same thing from their parents. And it's okay sometimes that you do things slightly differently, because for this kid it really benefits them, even if it wasn't exactly the way it looked for their sibling or for you. So I hope this was helpful. Your kids will be fine, I promise. Keep showing up and keep doing your best. And can't wait to talk next week. And please find us on our website, yourkidswillbefine.com. Leave us comments and leave us suggestions for new shows. Thanks.